Hi there. This is the Conscious Living Show, and we decided to go live a couple minutes before we start on Instagram over here. So each Monday, we're going to be doing our live presentation from our home, wherever we are, and talk to you about something that is pertinent to what's going on now, and perhaps it may fit into your life plan. Hi, how are you?
I'm doing great, dear.
Great.
Yeah, what are we talking about today?
Tonight we're talking about trust. So I'm going to go live over here at Instagram now and see if we can get that started. So I'll give you a moment for people to pipe in and ask us questions, comment, topics that you're interested. All right, ready? We're going to be going live here. So we're double dutying here. Hey, we're live on Instagram, so we have to
That's
sit a
right.
little closer together. You'll have to snuggle with me.
I'm doing great.
Okay.
So how does this
So I'm
look?
going to move over here. All right, so as soon as you see us live up here, it should show
With that
us.
little red thing?
Are you not you're not following me perhaps? Yeah, you're following. Okay, let's see what's going on here.
There was a red light at the top of it.
No, that's a heart. All right. There we go, the Conscious Living Show. Okay. Now you can see us.
All right, so what are we talking about here today?
So, welcome to the Conscious Living Show. We're talking about trust and how that impacts us, whether we do trust, we don't trust, why we lose trust, all of those things tonight.
When you should trust.
When you should trust,
Yeah.
and maybe when you shouldn't trust. Because, there are times when trust may not be the best thing for you. We're going to try to keep these shows to around 30 minutes so that they're not so overwhelming to your senses. And that way you have time to kind of digest what we're talking about. And feel free, we're putting these up on YouTube, which is the Conscious Living Show on YouTube. And then they'll be up on Instagram and Facebook. Trying to think of any place else. I'll put them on my website at drnsp.com. So you should be able to find us there as well.
Sounds good, love.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when I say the word trust, what comes to mind for you?
Um, Giving me the benefit of the doubt.
Okay, benefit of the doubt. All right. So, but could I do that with you like when I first met you?
Of course. Of course.
No. I think
Well,
that's the thing that I think people forget is this whole phrase of benefit of the doubt. It's overstated.
I think it's taken advantage of. I think that's one of our
Yeah.
weak spots, and that's really what we're trying to cover tonight is when you should trust and how do you improve your trust, and when trust has not been earned uh, uh, yet, and
Right.
or maybe it can't be earned. All of our senses are being stressed right now because of the election, and there's a lot of data coming up, and it's very interesting to see two different sides trying to determine who they trust. And this has really put a lot of stress on our system so
Right.
far.
Right.
But you also have this in relationships as well. And I think practicing trust at the relationship level is a time when you can really start to learn what it is and what it means.
And this kind of merges into some of the work that I'm doing with couples around the Oasis, which is a complex yet profound practice of learning how to trust and how to be trustworthy, and also how to speak your truth and have your truth heard, which is critical. How to hear another person's truth. So there's a lot of trust that has to be built and created before you can really feel comfortable revealing your inner truths. I know a lot of times in early relationships, people think that they need to reveal all of their truths, their whole history, everything about them in the first couple of dates. And I think for most people, that's overwhelming to get all that information right out of the chute.
I think as you build a relationship, what you're trying to build is trust, not, some things that happened in the past are truly in the past. They sometimes perhaps don't even need to be discussed. But I think that we use those things to see if we can build trust. And I think it's probably better to use things going forward. It's actually a little bit more difficult to talk about trust moving forward because you're going to be tested. You're going to be, whatever you've agreed to trust is going to be tested.
Right. And what you mentioned right away, the benefit of the doubt. And I have a philosophy about the benefit of the doubt. Would you like me to share that with you?
Absolutely. That's why I
Okay.
brought it up.
Okay. Because a lot of the benefit of the doubt was something that was created at a time when people lived in very small villages and they lived there for many generations. And so, if Johnny from the Smith family, you knew his family for many generations. You've known Johnny since he was a little kid. You know his character and you know how he usually behaves under certain circumstances. And then all of a sudden, Johnny acts really different from normal. Something is out of character for them. That's when benefit of the doubt fits the scenario because you know the person's track record and suddenly they're not that. So you can give that person benefit of the doubt and try to find out, okay, what's going on here. And that's why some of these villages, they don't punish people, they protect them, they love on them when they do something out of character because they realize that something is radically wrong.
So I think the key ingredient here is that you have already established some kind of track record with the
Right.
person or the community
Right.
before you can give them the benefit of the doubt.
Exactly.
How about the salesman that comes to your front door
Absolutely not.
and the car salesman?
No.
No. Yeah.
And really not even a doctor or a lawyer. I mean, we can learn more about people that are in the public eye or professional. We have Yelp now, we have social media, we have the networks, their licensing boards. So you can investigate people somewhat to find out what their track record is and learn a little bit more about their character. As a nurse, I can tell you that we never went to a doctor unless we talked to a lot of nurses that had gone to that doctor. So we use the nursing people to vet that person.
Well, recommendations are helpful, but I
Huge,
think
yeah,
still moving forward, each time you do something together, each time you have an experience, you start to develop a little
yeah,
bit more trust,
right,
and that's helpful.
yeah.
You get a
Look,
recommendation for someone to work on your home. That's better
yeah,
than just cold calling someone. But
right.
but I think that the part of the oasis and how that dovetails into your trusting and your communication skills, I think, is where it really becomes valuable.
Hmm.
Perhaps we need to be not suspicious of other people, but a little bit more cautious
Yeah,
with other people.
cautious is a good word.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
But you don't want to function and feel cautious, or if you feel like you're going to step on your partner's toes or do something, then you definitely need to work on trust and work on techniques to allow you to practice it, starting small and working up to the big things.
I think the flip side of trust can be that we might develop unrealistic expectations for how another person is going to behave, and we trust that they're not going to behave in certain ways that may not be realistic or humanly possible for that person. So we set ourselves up for disappointment via our expectancies rather than human nature or that person's track record. And so I think I find that a lot in people that they have these expectations of how others should act, what they should do, um, how they should speak, how they should dress. I mean, we have the long list, right? And then that person doesn't do what you expect, and many people feel betrayed by that. They say, see, I can't trust that I'm going to tell you not to chew with your mouth
Well,
open and you're going to do it again, and I can't trust that you're going to listen to me. So we kind of misuse the word trust in some of those
yeah,
instances.
that's really a different concept, but I think and well explained. I think little things can help you move forward, and in relationships, money is often an area where it's actually difficult to talk about.
Mm.
So
Money, sex, those are like
if
the
you
two
have
biggies.
areas that are difficult to talk about, you can practice your trust by being more straightforward with your partner,
Yeah.
and then they'll start to see, it's a circular thing. Once you see that you can be more straightforward, then it's easier to know that they're speaking their truth. If they're speaking their truth, they're more likely not to disappoint because why would they disappoint if they've revealed all of the things that they're concerned about? So, ironically, money can be, and how you spend and what you agree to spend money on, how you do your finances can be a great way to practice trust.
and and following through, if you say you're going to do something, I have a girlfriend that always says, say what you mean and mean what you say. And so the more you can be careful not to promise things that you can't follow through on, and just to be honest about what you can and can't do, or what you want and don't want to do, then trust will build. If you're willing to tell a person, no, I'm just really not comfortable with that, they're going to trust your, yeah, I'd love to do that a lot more. So I think you have to look at, kind of the relationship you're building with people in terms of your yeses and your nos, so that they trust that you're staying true to yourself. That's really critical in a relationship, is that you don't feel like you're asking a partner to compromise who they are or their integrity.
Yeah, and that's how you get to know them.
Right.
That's how they reveal who they are because they're comfortable. The better you know them, the less they'll disappoint, and that translates into trust. So, but one of the big issues right now is affecting our country, and we have had an election where a large majority of
I have to
people,
have a sip of water.
right, a lot of people who voted and were disappointed because their candidate did not win. Um, are having difficulty with trusting a system. And it is a little harder because that's not a person.
Right.
You can work intimately with a person, but now you have to trust in a system. And so we're trying to figure out how to work past that.
Hmm. So what do you suggest? How do
Well,
people?
I think that there's two parts to that. The first is go to the sources. Go to the places where you can get information about what has happened directly instead of it having it be filtered through a media. So I talked to some people today about Arizona's election. It was quite close. And there are misconceptions about how that election progressed. So rather than having me give that information to you second-handed, if you're worried about the election in Arizona, go to the election board in Arizona and see how they conducted their election, and then see if that changes your ideas of whether or not it was fair, and then if it was fair, can you trust the results? Because moving forward, this election's been settled, but as of today,
Yes.
but uh, but moving forward, we still want to trust our democracy. We really still want to support this country because it has been very successful and very helpful. It's not fair yet from a lot of perspectives, but it has the best tools for moving forward, my opinion. So let's not tear down the system. Let's improve it by developing a little bit more trust in the process, and that requires that you do your work.
Right.
You can't trust anybody else to give you their information. They're going to say, "Well, he didn't win because." No, he's already a person who is upset about losing, and the person who won is going to go, "Of course it was correct because," and it's filtered through their expectations for the election. You
Yeah.
don't want that. You just want to know, how was the election conducted? Was it mechanically fair? And do the numbers add up? And hopefully they'll be kind of transparent with the numbers, making it easier for each of us to go right to the source.
And I think that that's an important point when especially when we're using social media to share information, that we don't just inadvertently click the share button without doing a little research on fact checking. There's tons of fact check sites. Some of them lean right, some of them lean left. Most of them are in the middle, and they'll give you the kind of the background and the fact check sources, which is always good to have. But before you share something, especially if that share is going to perhaps incite a strong emotion in somebody, like fear or distrust, because for me, distrust and fear, they slide right in the same slot. And so I think we want to make sure that we're getting good information, and if you're curious about that information, go find some sources, because there's so much disinformation out there that's intended to confuse us and intended to sway our emotions one way or another, that have no basis of truth whatsoever to them.
Well,
So this is critical.
if you're not doing the work, you're in a sense the person you're listening to. You're giving them the benefit of the doubt.
Right.
You know,
Yeah, how
you're
can you
saying,
give
I
that
don't
person the
know, you
benefit
know,
of the doubt? You don't know
I don't
them.
know
Yeah.
if I know you at all, but what you're telling me sounds exactly what I want to hear.
Right.
So I'm gonna believe it,
Right.
and you become misinformed later on, and you be quite angry or disappointed, and you have to do the work.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to pass along things you agree with. It's to not go, oh, I don't need to fact check that. It's hard to fact check the things that you agree with to make sure that they're factual before you pass them along. So it's I just would say take a moment, because you learn a lot. I mean, I certainly have much more knowledge of how our government works, how the system works, how elections work, how states work versus federal. I have educated myself up the wazoo this last couple of years because I have been afraid. And so maybe that's the blessing in this for me, is that it woke me up to my responsibility as an American and as a citizen of this country to really be consciously participatory. And since this is the conscious living show, that does fall into the waking up to our life and our responsibility for ourselves and for how we're approaching each other.
Well, and kudos to our country. We had a massive turnout of people voting, which I think,
The most ever.
which is definitely what you want. You want this, anything that encourages a vote that's legal is going to help our democracy. There should be no doubt about that, that everyone needs to be heard. So, because once you're heard, you've had your say, and now you have to move on to the next step. So we are going to find ourselves in situations where we don't have a chance to trust someone. So first thing is you need to be cautious,
Mm-hmm.
and you also need to be able to handle uh, kind of consciously ahead of time how things could go wrong, and then that way you'll be pleasantly surprised, hopefully, and and not take a hit, so to speak. And you hire a contractor, or today I had to have some tires replaced on a car, and I usually don't use dealerships, and it made me a little bit nervous, but they actually were less expensive than tire stores, and I was pleasantly surprised. But I knew I might be disappointed. I knew that was a possibility, and I knew that I was strong enough to handle it if it occurred, and that it wasn't going to affect me any more than a moment going, oh, darn it, you know. So
It's
those
hard. It's hard to feel like you're getting taken advantage of. I mean, that is.
right,
I think that's a tough
but
lesson.
but it's easier if you anticipate that this is a time where that could occur
Right.
rather than being blindsided by
And
it.
that's where that expectancy thing comes in that I talk
Right.
about. If you
Lower your expectations. If you don't know the person, you can't.
Well, you really can't have any. Yeah. I
You know,
mean, we all wish that everybody was like us, right? Because we're perfect. It's like, hey, if you just thought like me and talked like me and did like me, the world would be so much easier. But that's just not reality. We have 300 million people.
if everybody did like you did, we'd have a happy world.
We would. See? Cheers.
Cheers. Yeah, so trust becomes something that we dance around all day long, and you have to know when you can trust, when you can't trust, if you're willing to give the benefit of the doubt, or when you have to be strong enough to handle, whatever occurs based on your trust. And of course, if it involves your physical health, you have to be even more cautious. If it's money, less so, although it still can be quite painful to get burned. I remember all of the times I get burned. It's just, that person that came to my door years ago that was selling magazines, and he was just out of jail, and I mean, he had his story down, and bam, I bought some magazines from him, and they were really easy to get through because I never got them, So, uh, and it just wasn't
Damn.
worth it to do that. Or I didn't want to Xerox a check. Back in the day, it was hard to get to a Xerox machine, and so this company said I hadn't paid him, so I said, no, I have a canceled check here, but instead of copying it and sending him a copy, I just sent him the real check with the cancel mark on the back. Didn't think that the bank would cash it a second time,
Oh my God.
but they did. So, ouch, but again, you have to be able to handle those things if they occur. But really,
It's
much.
not that big of a wine glass, by the way. It just looks big when it's right up here.
No, it looks big when it's right here.
Everything looks big right here.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It's magnified. So she'll get happier and happier as the show goes on. So
No,
that's how you can tell
I'm getting
if
happier and
if the wine
happier
glass
because
is
today is sinking in. So should I confess my trust issue,
what trust issue?
the one that I revealed to you on our 11th anniversary?
Go ahead.
Okay. So my background is that I had some trust issues from childhood and adolescence and my early 20s. And so I was not very trusting. And then this king comes along, and I don't recognize a king because I've never seen one before. So it took me a long time to recognize that this man is a king. And so we were together 7 years. We got married because I was never getting married again. And after
There were some clues. Just saying.
yeah, that was maybe one of the clues. And then on our 11th anniversary, I had this aha experience where I realized that what I was feeling for the first time in my whole life was the feeling that I could trust someone. And I revealed that to him because it was such an epiphany for me to have this. I mean, it was just this overwhelming emotion of, oh my God, I finally know what trust is. I was super excited to share that with him. I didn't realize how that might come across to somebody that's been with you for 18 years. And he was like, well, I think that's probably one of the only times I got a what WTF from you. It's like, what WTF?
Well,
What's been happening all this time? I think it was a shock.
I think there's a couple of points. There were clues along the way.
Yeah.
And yet the fact that I was well past that point and was trusting doesn't mean that it's reciprocated. Sometimes you have a tendency to think, well, if I certainly trust her, so I know she trusts me.
Right.
Well, you don't know anything about what they think.
Truly.
Until you're past 11 years plus 7 or whatever, 18 years. The clues were, of course, that it was 7 years before we got together formally, and that it was 7 years before she was willing to share a checking account with me.
Yeah, I wouldn't merge money.
And then at our first anniversary, she said, "Do you want to sign up again for another term?"
See, I was giving you clues.
These were terms.
I wasn't dishonest. Yeah.
And
no, it was 1 year at a time.
1 year at a time,
Right.
one term
Right.
at a time,
Right.
and then we got rid of that.
After
And-
5 years,
and
you
then
made me get rid of
I
that.
thought it was settled at that point, but little did I know there was still some trust issues going on there, and so you
I
have to
know.
be persistent and you have to be consistent so that a person can learn that you can trust them, and the best way is to be able to reveal your truth.
And here's the thing, is looking back, I wouldn't have been able to articulate that I didn't trust you because I had never known what trust was. I had never in my life known that feeling. I hadn't. I couldn't trust my parents. I couldn't trust my brother. I couldn't trust my boyfriends. It's like I had all these harmful men in my life, and so trust for me was an
Couldn't
unknown.
even trust yourself. So impulsive. Just teasing.
I'm I'm going to put that one over here for right now. We'll come back to that later, dear.
Well, but I actually, in a serious way, I tease a lot because it's my job to make her laugh, which is a whole nother show. But you do have to start trusting yourself first.
Yes.
And one of the best ways to trust yourself is if you are able to reveal your truth to people that are really important to you.
Right.
And that is exactly why a car salesman or a person who's coming to repair your home or whatever is not someone you will ever trust as much as your partner. That's it.
Right. Or a new person in your life, I mean, I counsel a lot of people that are single and dating, and they think that in this, I can't tell if I had a nickel for every time somebody said within the first month or two, this is the one, I would be a very rich woman. Because people believe people in their best behavior that that's their character, and it's easy to act a certain way for a short period of time. That's why I have a 2-year rule for relationships, because you need to go through season changes. You need to get off of that dopamine high, which is called the hormonal beer goggles. I have an article I wrote about that if you're interested. And you need to get to the point where you're seeing things with clear eyes, and those red flags don't look just like a really pretty pink.
Sometimes it takes 11 years.
Sometimes it takes 11 years. It does. Depends on how much damage you have. You got to heal. But you were a healing catalyst for me, so it took me. It was like steps, baby steps. Hey, I said
And
yes when you asked me to marry you. Well, that I was a
and
shock. That was a
and
shocker.
then I think that you know her not trusting me for 11 years just meant she was a little more cautious. Didn't mean that there was anything in jeopardy with our relationship as long as I was straightforward and didn't challenge her in a
You
way
didn't screw up.
that would have been really disruptive. And that had nothing to do with how you were, because you didn't necessarily know what trust was, didn't mean that I should distrust you, you
Right.
know. So
Right.
so you can move forward even though you don't have what you feel is a totally trusting relationship. But just know that there are degrees of trust, especially between your partner and then your children and then your friends and then all of these other people that you know out in the community. And sometimes you have to move ahead not knowing for sure if you're trusted, like for 11 years.
I had somebody describe relationships in a really interesting way once, where they talked about like rings of a tree, and the very inner core is like a few people that you let into your very most intimate inner circle. It may be one person that ever gets into that inner circle where they know you inside and out, and they still like you. That person. And then you have the outer rings that where the further out you go, the less you know them and they know you, until you're out to strangers. And a lot of times we take a stranger and we try to insert them quickly into that inner circle. And even if you've had sex with somebody, that doesn't put them in the inner circle, because they have to earn that place in your life where you know them, they know you, you're there for each other, and that takes time. You cannot rush that. There's no possible way to speed up that process. It just takes time. You got to put in the work and the time. And one other thing I wanted to make sure we talk about before we go is the word trust, and you touched on it, is trusting yourself. And I think that's the key, is to learn that confidence, that no matter what happens to you, that you're going to be okay, that you can make it through, that you can survive it. I mean, I've been very upset about how this election has gone this last 4 years in our political arena, looking at countries to move to. I mean, really, truly unnerved by what's happened in our country. And yet I still trusted that I would be able to survive it. I might have to move to do it. We might have to relocate our family to do that, but I knew I could do that if I had to. And then Mark has reassured me that no, we would be okay staying here. We can create our own little nest. So, he peels me off the wall every now and then. Do you
Well,
think maybe I'm the emotional one here?
no, dear, I'm the emotional one. Um, but I think also when you have these feelings and you have these challenges, as again, that's why I said it's easier to build trust going forward than it is looking back, because you can't really test looking back. But when someone tells you, in this election process, that perhaps the people in the Supreme Court, even though they, in this specific instance, appointed by the president, they were not biased by that at all. They came to an independent ruling. And of course, if you agree with the ruling, it's easier to believe that that's the case, but it's harder for the other side to believe that it wasn't, because they were appointed by the president. So you start to see that the system itself was set up pretty well.
Yeah.
And so then you can, okay, I was worried, I was concerned.
Yep.
It came through. Now it has a little bit more of my trust. Now it's a system, so can you trust it completely? No, but you can trust it a little bit more, and next time your anxiety won't go as high.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, how we move forward, is that and you do the same thing with an individual. You say, are you gonna be home on time? And if they keep saying yes and they're not showing up, that's probably not a great example, but I don't want to use an example that'll get me in trouble. So
But I think that is key. If you, like, we have a constitution that has everything written down, says this is what we're going to do, how we're going to do it. And if our government were to not follow that, we would lose trust. But because it's been consistent for however many years, it's been consistent, then we can trust it. And every time it's tested, which it has certainly been this year, and it passes the test, we go, okay, I can still trust it. And I think relationships are the same way. If you say you're going to do something and you follow through and you do it, every time you do that, you build more trust in that relationship that you're going to do what you say you're going to do.
right, right.
That's called character. That's called integrity, right? So, if we want somebody to trust us, we can't just say, trust me. Every time a person says to me, trust me, and they follow it with something, I know I can't trust them. Honestly, I know, can't trust them.
Trust me.
If you have to tell me I have to trust you, I know I can't trust you, because trust is earned.
One of the paradoxes of trust is that, especially in a relationship, is as you get to know somebody, you start to know what they are, how they disagree with you. And when they disagree and moving forward, that actually can put a little bit more pressure on your decision. So if we talk about buying a great truck, and you're going, I don't think, and I'm thinking, no, I'm getting a truck, and I just go out and get a truck, that's a test that that shows that trust is a little bit concerning. Or especially if I say, okay, I'm not going to get a truck, and then I show up with a truck because I don't want to talk about it anymore. I just want to do it.
Yeah.
And you'd be better off in that conversation to say, listen, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm less concerned about how you feel about it, but I'm not going to do it behind your back, so to speak.
Right.
That's the way that you really mess up trust.
Right.
Now, there are other things that can mess up a relationship. So if you do things too independently, such as that, then the other person's going to start wondering, well, am I really in a relationship or not? I didn't really have a say in that. But that's a different topic to discuss. The trust issue is something you can test and work on as you move forward.
Okay.
Some people go fast, some people take 11 years.
Or 18. So I think the summary of the night is that trust is something that's earned, it's built, and starting a foundation is really having the people involved have integrity and be willing and free to speak their truth. That means that we as individuals need to be able to handle people's truths. and we need to be able to respectfully handle their truths. If every time someone tells you they don't want to do something and you coerce them into doing it, you will not build trust. Just even friends, if you say, I just feel like staying in tonight, I don't really want to go out to dinner or whatever, when we can do that again. If you go, oh, come on, we're all going out, and you kind of bully them into doing that, they're not going to trust that you will hear their truth. So we teach people how to treat us by how we accept the truths that they tell us, even if they're the ones we don't want to hear. That builds trust. Because then when they tell us their truth, if it's what we want to hear, we're much more likely to believe it if we know that they're willing to say no and we've accepted that. So that builds trusting relationships, and that actually builds intimacy, where you can be confident that this person's going to tell you the truth. Because
So,
isn't that that's what we all seek? That's what we've been seeking for the last 4 years, is truth, and from our government and the people that are running things. We want truth.
yeah. So in your relationship, look at the ways that you are moving forward and how you're building trust. It is very freeing. It is, I think, one of the core concepts of a relationship and why you are comfortable in that relationship. Got to trust that you got my back.
Yeah.
I might not be able to speak for myself, and I
Right.
need to know
Right.
that this person can speak very clearly for me, not the way she feels, but how I feel. And I see people making those decisions all the time for life support. And I ask them, I say, now, what did your partner say to you over the years that gave you a feeling that, you knew what they would want in this situation? And they would say, well, no way, he wouldn't want to be on life support, but I want him on life support. And I'd say, well, okay. And then you can talk about the trust issue. All right, so we've covered trust really
Yeah,
well. I think so.
okay.
Yeah.
So next week we'll be back with another topic. If you have topic ideas, words, concepts that you'd like us to speak about, cover, talk about, chat about, you can kind of get a sense of how Mark and I talk through these things. We're constantly talking. We just never run out of things to say because we're always interested in what the other person's thinking. And even if we don't like to hear it, we still do our best to
And
listen.
if you're in a relationship and you want to practice trust, you need to learn the Oasis. So
Yeah.
call up Nancy and work with her a couple of times and learn how to effectively use the Oasis, that concept for building trust in your relationship. Maybe it'll only take you 7 years.
We'll see if we can speed it up for you. All right. So have a great night. Let's see. Next week is Christmas week, but we'll be back. We'll still be here, and we hope you have great holidays. Please stay safe. This is a crazy time out
Yes.
there. Wear your masks.
Trust
stay
science.
home. Trust
Science,
science. Don't listen to the politicians. Trust the scientists. They have been doing this a long, long time.
Look at other areas where science has worked for you and trust as we move forward.
Yep.
All right, you got to stop.
All right. Thank you. Good night.
Take care.
See you next week. Bye. Thanks for listening. See you next week. Bye-bye.